There is something I've noticed about Davido over the years. Whenever he releases an album that isn't trying too hard to impress people, it usually ends up becoming one of his best projects. That was exactly what happened with A Better Time. When it first came out, many people felt it wasn't as exciting as some of his previous releases. They wanted something more experimental, something louder, something that immediately grabbed attention. But as time passed, opinions started changing. People began going back to the album and realizing just how many quality records were on it. Today, there are listeners who genuinely believe A Better Time is one of Davido's strongest albums. And after listening to Oriade, I honestly think history might repeat itself. This is not the kind of album that screams for attention on the first listen. It is the type of album that quietly grows on you. The Yoruba word Oriade translates to "the head is crowned," and in many ways, that title perfectly represents where Davido is in his career. This doesn't sound like an artist trying to prove he can still make hits. It sounds like an artist who already knows who he is. One thing that immediately stood out to me throughout this album is how relaxed everything feels. Davido isn't forcing high-energy performances. He isn't chasing every new trend in Afrobeat. Instead, he returns to the sound that made him one of Africa's biggest artists. And honestly, that decision works. Unlike some of his recent projects that occasionally jumped between different sounds and international influences, Oriade stays rooted in Afrobeats. That consistency gives the album a clear identity. You know exactly what kind of experience you're getting from the first few songs. Another thing I appreciated is the pacing. This album is dominated by mid-tempo records. Outside of I Know Who I Be, which is probably the most energetic record on the project, almost every other song moves at a comfortable pace. Nothing feels rushed. Nothing feels like it's trying to compete with TikTok trends. Instead, the songs are allowed to breathe. And because of that, the album becomes incredibly easy to listen to from beginning to end. Now let's talk about the production. Production is one of the biggest strengths of this project. Instead of overcrowding the beats with unnecessary elements, the producers leave enough space for Davido's melodies to shine. That simplicity is one of the reasons the album sounds so mature. Sometimes less really is more. I was particularly happy to hear Fresh VDM playing an important role on this project. Fans will remember that Fresh contributed significantly to A Better Time, and hearing him back on Oriade creates a sense of familiarity. It's almost like Davido intentionally went back to a creative partnership that has always worked. The production across the album feels polished without trying to be flashy. Every beat serves the song instead of trying to steal the spotlight. Now let's talk about some of the songs that really stood out. Julie. One of my favorites is Julie. This song perfectly captures what Oriade is trying to achieve. It is smooth. It is melodic. It is incredibly easy to sing along with. Most importantly, it has replay value. This isn't one of those songs that tries to impress you with complicated production or excessive vocal gymnastics. Instead, it succeeds because of how effortless it feels. It's the kind of song you can listen to while driving, relaxing at home, or simply trying to unwind after a long day.
When these prayers I pray, save me.
Another thing that impressed me is how Davido approached collaborations on this album. The featured artists never feel like distractions. Instead, they help expand the emotional and musical direction of the project. Whether it's Black Sharif bringing his unique emotional delivery, Lona adding another layer of introspection, or the other featured artists contributing their individual styles, nobody sounds out of place. That tells me there was a clear vision behind this album. One of the biggest differences between Oriade and some of Davido's previous albums is the level of maturity. There isn't a constant need to prove anything. The confidence comes naturally. You can hear an artist who understands his strengths and isn't interested in reinventing himself simply because the industry expects it. That confidence becomes one of the album's greatest strengths. Now, does that mean the album is perfect? Not exactly. Some listeners might argue that the album plays things a little too safe. If you were hoping Davido would completely reinvent his sound or experiment with unusual production styles, you probably won't find that here. There are moments where the familiarity of the production can make certain songs blend together. And that's probably the biggest criticism I have. Because the album stays within one sonic direction for most of its runtime, a few records don't immediately separate themselves from the rest. But interestingly, I don't necessarily see that as a major weakness. In fact, I think that's exactly why this album will age well. Albums built around consistency often have longer replay value than albums built around chasing trends. That's exactly why I keep comparing this project to A Better Time. Neither album relied heavily on shocking listeners. Instead, they focused on creating enjoyable music that people would naturally return to. I also think this album reflects Davido's personal growth. The performances sound calmer. The songwriting feels more reflective. Even the overall mood suggests someone who is comfortable with where he is in life. There's no unnecessary pressure. No desperation. Just music made from a place of confidence and experience. And sometimes that's exactly what great albums need. After listening to Oriade several times, I genuinely believe this is one of Davido's most cohesive projects in recent years. It may not produce the loudest first-week reactions. It may not dominate social media conversations in the same way some albums do. But I wouldn't be surprised if, 2 or 3 years from now, people begin calling this one of Davido's most underrated albums. We've seen that happen before. And I honestly think it's about to happen again. Overall, Oriade is an album that embraces simplicity instead of excess. It reminds listeners that Davido doesn't need to chase every trend to remain relevant. Sometimes, returning to the sound that made you successful is the smartest creative decision you can make. It's mature. It's cohesive. It's easy to replay. And more importantly, it sounds like an artist who has found peace with his own identity. But now I want to hear from you. Have you listened to Oriade yet? What's your favorite song on the album? Do you think this project will become another underrated Davido classic, or do you think he should have taken more creative risks? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because we've got more in-depth music reviews coming up. I see you in the next one.
I'm already falling.